Okay, thank you everyone for joining us for today's presentation, Safeguard Your Data Against Ransomware. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedules to be here with us. We have about a 30 to 40 minute presentation followed by Q&A today. So thanks for being here. You also see on the title slide here the Gartner logos. So in the bottom left, Infrascale was named a Gartner 2015 Cool Vendor in Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery. And then you also see in the bottom right, Gartner Visionary. So we are a 2016 Gartner Visionary in the Disaster Recovery as a Service Magic Quadrant. So I will be sharing these slides with you, and I will be sharing a copy of this replay video with you. You can also go to the handout section if you want to grab a copy of these slides. I included some other info there that would be helpful to you, just more information on ransomware and disaster recovery, so you'll see those in the handouts. We have this Infrascale ransomware webinar. We also have a ransomware survival guide, and then we have the 2016 Disaster Recovery Attitudes and Adoption Report. So lots of great information for you guys there as well, so please make use of that. Okay, now on the screen here, you have all of my contact information. My name's Carla Federigo, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Infrascale. You have my email, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. If you'd like to reach out after this presentation, I'm happy to speak to you guys. And then also the recording for this video is going to be posted on our website, infrascale.com/webinars. We post all of these presentations within 24 to 48 hours on that site, so you can watch them at your leisure on demand anytime that's convenient for you. Also, it'd be great if you guys can join the conversation. You can follow us on Twitter at Infrascale. You can ask questions here throughout the presentation. There's definitely many ways to reach out to us, so we do want to continue that conversation with you. All right, with that, let's take a look at the agenda for today. So first, we are going to talk about the evolution of ransomware, sort of where ransomware started, where it is now, and this is a really important topic. Of course, this is why all of us are here today, because we've been hearing more and more about ransomware in the news, and friends or colleagues, so many people are getting affected by ransomware that we really need a way to combat this. Next on the agenda, we're going to be talking about the best practices for prevention of ransomware. And then recovering from an attack. So if, you know, knock on wood, you have a ransomware attack tomorrow, what do you do immediately, and how do you act quickly? So not only do you want to have the best practices in place to prevent ransomware in the future, if anything were to happen and you needed to immediately recover now, what do you do? And then finally, we're going to come to the Q&A. And then we have a prize giveaway in that Q&A today. So all you need to do to be eligible for that prize giveaway is ask lots of relevant and on-topic questions. So we are going to pick at random someone from the questions log at the end of this presentation. So just go ahead, use that question tool, ask all questions throughout the presentation. They're not going to get lost in there, they will be saved in there. And then we have a senior sales engineer, Aaron Jordan, who is going to be joining us for the Q&A and jumping on to answer all those technical questions as well. All right, so with that, let's dive in and first take a quick look at an understanding of what is ransomware. And we also want to look at how ransomware has changed over time as well, right? So ransomware, we know, takes several different forms, but what it is a type of malware that denies access to a device or files until a ransom's been paid. So it encrypts a user's files and then it forces them to pay a fee to the hacker to regain access of their own data. And then here's where an even bigger problem sets in. So ransomware encrypts the files on a workstation, and then it can travel across the network and encrypt files on your network drives. So that's how one single infected user can bring down an entire department or even an entire organization. So we've really seen this spreading, and we definitely know now that we need a solution and we need one quickly, right? All right, now as long as computers have been in use, programmers have been able to create malicious software. So this isn't just a last several years issue. This goes back to even earlier than what you see on the screen, the 1986 to 1989 that you see here. Even back earlier than that, in 1971, was the creeper virus, and that was a really early example of how quickly malware can spread through systems. And then, so you look at 2006 to 2010, you see the high-speed encryption evolution, and what we found there was by 2007, as much malware was produced in that one single year than had been produced in the previous 20 years altogether. So then from 2007 onward, you see CryptoWall, CryptoLocker, LOCKY here in 2016. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about LOCKY, but really you see how this has been evolving and where ransomware is today. So let's take a look at a couple of these in more detail. So what we're looking at now, here's the reality, right, in 2016, where this leaves us. There's two types of organizations out there. Now there are those that have been breached and those that have been breached but don't know it yet. Which category do you guys fall into? All right, so here are some ransomware trends for us to take a look at. First up at the top there, almost 3,000 new malware modifications were reported in the first quarter of 2016. And so what we know is that the ransomware gets activated by a user. That user lets it in, it starts modifying all the files on the system until you get a triggered message for a ransom demand. Now, if you get one of those ransom demands, paying it involves paying an e-currency or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, right? And then once the hackers verify that payment, they, hopefully provide the decryptor software, and then your computer starts the long process of decrypting all your files. And that's why the fastest response times until you're back up and running can take 2 days. And it can get up to 5 days in other cases. So that's why 72%, nearly 3/4 of ransomware victims, were unable to access their data for 2 days. Now, what would that cost your business? Think of that, the cost of downtime there. For most, it would put them out of business. And then we know that they're getting away with it because of the amount of money paid in ransom. So the FBI reported over $200 million have been paid in ransomware in just the first 3 months of this year. But compare that with the total of all of 2015, 25 million paid in all of 2015, and that jumped up to 200 million in just the first 3 months of this year. So this is how quickly ransomware is growing. And what we know is that over 1/3 of SMBs were victim to malicious phishing emails in 2015 as well. So one big problem of ransomware is you just simply have no idea for weeks or months, because ransomware works slowly. It starts with the old files on your system. It looks at the last date opened, the last date modified, and that's why it could take weeks or even months until you receive a ransom request or a ransom demand. So here's what those ransom demands look like. You get one of these messages, and then once the files are encrypted, that's when the hackers display this screen. They're explaining how to pay to unlock these files. And, the payments, in the past, ransom started around $300, $500. The one that's grayed out here on the screen actually says you need to pay $300 US. So that's where the range used to be. But fast forward to 2016, companies now are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars. So it's really getting out of control. And plus, the ransom usually increases as the hours pass if you don't respond. So if you don't respond in an hour, the ransom doubles. One of these screens that you see here, the one in front, says to unlock the computer, you have to pay a fine of $200. So that has just grown exponentially. Okay, let's take a look at how we know if we're infected. And we know that hackers are primarily infecting machine using phishing emails, using free software downloads, things like that. It could come from an unpatched program, a website. So here are a couple of the signs that you are infected. These are some of those symptoms. Now, one is you just can't open your normal files. You're getting errors. Of course, if you see one of those ransom demands telling you how to pay to unlock your files, or maybe you see a countdown timer, or you see that all of your files have been renamed and you see things like how to decrypt files or decrypt instructions. So we know that in the most common scenario, the attack starts when one user opens a malicious email attachment or maybe installs a virus onto their desktop accidentally, and it begins encrypting their files. So what hackers have been doing is they're even sending a file with multiple extensions. They're trying to hide the true type of the file that you're receiving. So one user opens an email attachment, maybe clicks on a link to software download without verifying the authenticity of that download, and the ransomware infection begins. Now also, on top of that, there are so many different strains of ransomware in circulation, so many different types. Now, here are a couple that we've seen a lot recently. CryptoLocker is one, and this targets computers running Windows. It's going to restrict access to, the infected computer. It seems like CryptoLocker has really been spreading through fake emails that were designed to mimic the look of legitimate businesses. So this was coming through phony FedEx, phony UPS, tracking notices. That's how CryptoLocker was spreading. And then Ransom32. This one's really scary because Ransom32 is a variety of ransomware as a service. So that is effectively putting the power to create ransomware into the hands of anyone, regardless of their technical knowledge. And what makes Ransom32 really dangerous as well is that it's coded entirely using JavaScript. So that means it can be used to target computers running Windows, but also running Mac OS X and Linux. Now, LOCKY is one that we want to look at as well. So LOCKY, it's one that we've probably all heard of recently. It renames all of the important files so that they have the extension .locky. And this one we're seeing is really changing the game. So let's talk a little bit more about LOCKY and learn more about it. Now, it changes the game because first, it's targeting a worldwide audience. Businesses and organizations through your entire network. One of the main routes of infection here has been through these spam email campaigns, and a lot of them were disguised as invoices. So they were just simply Word documents containing that malicious macro attached to the emails. And what we saw in the beginning days of ransomware was really, hackers were only going after consumers in their individual files and folders. But these strains of ransomware, they're increasingly infecting businesses. And these business systems, it really ups the ante with extorting payment for that decryption key. Businesses we've seen throughout Europe, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, they've all been hit with these massive email phishing campaigns carrying that malicious JavaScript attachment that I just mentioned. So even closer to home, though, businesses are here also being targeted in really similar type of spam attacks. So recently, Amazon.com, they were targeted with a massive phishing campaign. It was estimated to have sent out 30 to 100 million spam messages claiming to just be an Amazon.com shopping order update. So that's how that one got through. Now, Third here, the network effect. So this is where the even bigger problem sets in, because yes, Locky encrypts the files on one workstation, but then it can travel across the network and encrypt files on your network drives. One Locky infected user can bring an entire organization to a halt. So what do you do if you're infected? More importantly, how do you prevent an attack from happening? That's what we want to look at next, right? So now that we have a really good, solid understanding of what ransomware is, really how it works, let's sort of shift gears and talk about what can be done to prevent it. So we really now are going to switch and get into the ransomware best practices, how to work against ransomware. Of course, really important to have antivirus, but more like a firewall that's stopping things from coming in. But if you lack sophisticated cybersecurity infrastructure for anti-malware to stop things once they're already on your system, then you're at risk. And really, right now, none of us are immune to these types of high-profile attacks, right? And plus, everyone has irreplaceable data. Everyone does. So let's switch gears now and just talk about how to effectively and affordably take the proper preventative measures. You really don't want to be stuck with that recommendation to just pay up, just pay the ransom. So let's get you a new set of best practices to prevent this from happening to you. All right, but before we do that, I'd love to just do a really quick poll. So I'm going to launch a poll here. I've been talking quite a bit here in the beginning, and I want to hear from everyone on the line. So let me just launch this poll here. There we go. All right, so you should see that popping up on your screen now. When it comes to ransomware, which of these is you? A, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or one of my customers or clients has been a victim of ransomware. B, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. And C, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. So I'll give everyone a minute to answer that. Great. We have 75% of you who voted so far. If you hadn't voted yet, get your vote in before we share the results. Now we're up to 79% have voted. Again, when it comes to ransomware, which of these is you? A, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or one of my customers or clients has been a victim of ransomware. B, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. Or C, I don't think I'll be infected by ransomware or affected. All right, we have almost 90% of you have voted so far, so that's the majority. Thanks everyone for your participation with that. Let me go ahead and close the poll down and share these results. Pretty interesting results, guys. So, okay, just close that poll down and now you'll see the results pop up here next. So, taking a look at these poll results, we have 60% of you said, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or my customer, my client has been a victim of ransomware. What happened in that scenario? Did you pay the ransom? Did you roll back to previous backup? What was the situation and how was it resolved? Use the question tool and share with the group if you'd like to, please. 36% said, no, I have not experienced this type of security breach. And I want to make sure that those of you who answer no are not in that second bucket we saw earlier. There are two companies, two types of companies, those that have been infected and those that have been infected but don't know it yet. So if you're in that bucket, we definitely want to get you today set up with really good prevention practices so that you're ready for that type of scenario. And then 4% said, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. I'm really curious to hear from that 4% of you. What type of business do you have, and what type of environment do you have? I'm just very curious as to why you don't think you'll be affected at all by ransomware. So please use the question tool and just type in your comments, and we can share them with the group. So far, Wade has said restored from backups. Wade, how long did it take to restore from those backups until everything was back up and running as though nothing had happened? Wow, and then John says, we used shadow copies to restore the data. On average, lose 2 days of work that needs to be re-entered. Wow. John, what did that cost your business? And then Wade replied now, he said next day. So what we found is 24 hours of downtime. There's an average. This is another piece of information that I can share with all of you guys. I'll drop it in the handouts if I have it on my desktop. Otherwise, I'll email it out to you. But we have a really interesting study on the cost per hour of downtime. So small businesses lost something like $8,000 per hour, but large enterprises lost over $600,000 per hour of downtime. So the average there, the medium-sized business was losing $163,000 per hour, I believe. I could be a bit off on those numbers, but I'll be happy to share the data with you guys on that study. David says lost a few hours. Jason says caught infection within 20 minutes of landing. Wow, pretty good, Jason. Detection via file screens caught the infection. Okay. Anyone else want to share their scenario? And while I let you guys do that, I'm going to close these poll results down here now that we've shared that. Good. All right. So I don't see any other comments coming through right now, but I will pause again and check that out and share with the rest of the group in a minute. Oh wow, okay, we do have one more. John says, customer did not let me know of issue until all data was infected. Wow, John, I'm so sorry to hear that. And that's why it was 2 days of loss. And how much did that cost? Wow. Let's talk now about really how to avoid ransomware. So backup and disaster recovery, or BDR, can protect you, but only if you do it right. Now, if you do get infected, the first thing that you should do is simply get the infected machine off the network. You want to stop the malware from spreading, and you always need to assume that the malware can make use of that internet connection, spread itself to other users as well. So isolate that machine to stop all network communication from the spread of the malware. And then next, reset your BIOS time. So reset the BIOS time to stop the clock. It really just gives you more time to prepare your backup and recovery. And also, according to Privacy PC, IT admins don't need to worry about that ransomware countdown timer, that one that doubles the ransom, if you just reset your BIOS time back. So that's going to give you more time to calm down and recover your key files and eliminate the malware, right? And then third, if you're hit with malware, roll back from a previous backup. Having a recent backup will make it easy for you to restore operations as quickly and painlessly as possible. It's going to save money for yourself and the business. And while right now this is really the go-to if you get infected, we are going to talk about an even better solution from simply just rolling back to a previous backup here in a minute. But right now, most of us sort of think, okay, these are the two options if you get infected. Since the ransomware works silently, it's slowly over weeks encrypting files on the computer. So having a backup solution in place and also regularly testing those backups to make sure they're running properly, that's one critical part of protecting your business from ransomware. So if you don't have access to a recent backup right now, then you'll likely have no choice but to pay the ransom. And then that takes time. You know, consider, would the downtime be costlier than paying the ransom? And then go back to that, you know, what's your cost per hour of downtime? How is that going to affect your business? All right, moving on to this next screen. This is actually a couple of screenshots from my backup and recovery account with Infrascale. And so by default, Infrascale keeps everything. So I have every version ever backed up. So I can roll back to any date that I choose. I can back up with low RPO, and that's recovery point objective, and low RTO, or recovery time objective, since I regularly back up my machine. So I can just recover my useful files and keep working. And now here's a snapshot of the Infrascale dashboard as well. Now, it's not just the simple backup and recovery software on my machine, but I also have access to this dashboard that provides me a unified management console for all my data protection and cloud storage information. So here I can view activity alerts, I can access reporting and monitoring, I can monitor account usage, and this is all without requiring VPN access. All I need is a browser from any laptop or even an iPad or an iPhone, just any browser. I can log in, I can control remote deployments, I can manage retention settings, I can use the MSI to deploy anywhere in the world. So lots of really powerful tools right at my fingertips here in my dashboard. Now, when ransomware goes through your system, though, it modifies the files that it touches. So if it's a file that's being backed up, it's recognized as a changed file. Now here is my dashboard account level details. So this is where I have an analytics tab. I can see here these radio buttons of the last 24 hours, last 30 days, or calendar view. I can actually go through and see which machine has the most changes. So what we did here is we took these analytics and we created a brand new monitoring alert. So this alert is called anomaly detection. And if you have a large number of newly modified files, really you want to know what's touching my data, what happened. And you'll see that an average backup of changed files will just continue as normal, just run normally. But an unusually large backup is going to trigger the anomaly alert to that admin if they're subscribed for monitoring alerts. So let's take a look at this anomaly detection in action, right? Now here is the Infrascale dashboard homepage. And so from here we'll just walk through how to set up an anomaly warning. So to configure the anomaly settings, you simply go to Set Anomaly Detection setting right here. And then we let you set the threshold. So the threshold is just the warning when it's released, when that threshold has been passed. And here's how it works. We calculate a rolling average number of modified files. So that's over time, it's for each device. And then if that modified file count for that backup passes that predetermined threshold, we'll release a warning. So you can also then here open the details, and you can see things like backup duration, you can see total files processed. So here are all the monitoring details. And then you can also see how many files are modified. You can download the logs by just selecting the Manage Action if you want to investigate at a file level as well. So typically what users see is 5 to 10 modified files per day because so much work is done online. So anything 3 to 4 times that is going to likely be cause for investigation. It could be ransomware. It's something that you want to look into. And that's the sort of the basics of how anomaly detection works. Now, this is really important because nobody has proactive alerting. None of the BDR solutions out there have this type of warning. Everyone is sort of just waiting, maybe waiting for an infection and then quickly scrambling, trying to pay the ransom, roll back to a previous date, and trying to figure something out at that point. But this is proactive alerting. Now, I have another really quick poll. Now that we've seen anomaly detection in action, before we get to the next section, I quickly want to ask, when it comes to BDR, which of these is you? So let me open the second poll. And thanks for all your participation so far, guys. Okay, so I've launched that poll here now. When it comes to BDR, which of these is you? A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. B, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery, just can't afford it. We'll talk about that in a minute too. C, I still don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. And hopefully C this time is a trick question, you guys. Not trying to really trick anyone, but I don't think anyone's going to say C this time, right? Let's see what we get. All right, we have 56% of you have voted so far. Give everyone some time to reach forward and vote. I know some of you guys might be eating lunch over this webinar or something like that, so I'll give you a minute to take a sip of your water, wipe off your hands, and reach over. Oh, we just had some votes for C come through. Wow. Okay, I'm really interested and curious to hear from you guys who answered C. We've got 78% of you have voted so far, so I'll go ahead and close the poll down and share the results. All right, 60% said, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. 36% said, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it. 4% said, I still don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. Really interesting results, guys. I'm still really curious to hear from those of you who answered C. But in the meantime, until I hear from you guys in the question tool, I will go ahead and close that poll down so that we can take a look at the next option here to prevent ransomware. So the next way to prevent ransomware is essentially disaster recovery as a service. So on-demand disaster recovery. This is sort of where DRAS comes in, because backup and recovery sometimes just simply isn't enough. It depends on how much data you have, what types of data, how quickly you need to be able to recover. So you don't want to have that 2-day wait time, that 5-day lag. That's going to put you out of business. So DRAS, or Disaster Recovery as a Service, quickly lets you fail over your systems. It supports DR to be on demand. So here's a scenario as to how it works. Here are some end users. They're just working along, and unknown to them, they're about to experience a ransomware attack. Now with on-demand failover, you simply log in from any browser, even on a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. You can roll back to a previous date and instantly recover a clean version of the entire environment, not just files and folders. You instantly recover a clean version of the whole entire environment. So that way everyone keeps working. It's as though there were no ransomware attack. Now let's take a look at this in a little more detail, just sort of a closer look. Now on the left is the traditional backup flow. And so this is your typical backup and recovery. It has your production box and the backup server next to it, and then you're copying that data to some storage. It could be a tape drive, on-prem disk, the cloud, any offsite storage. So when a disaster happens, you then need to copy that data back out of storage. This all takes time, and then you have to reconfigure, and that's why you end up recovering in days. So that's a very slow recovery time. But now look on the right, DRAS has a much faster recovery time. Here we don't want to be copying everything back and forth, moving data here and then moving data there. We simply want to spin up a working environment where the data sits. So we virtualize and create up to 200 machines on the fly and reconstruct your data center infrastructure where your data is sitting. And this is really important because of how we've seen is ransomware has evolved. We took a look at that earlier in the presentation. The primary issue used to just be individual data loss, but now ransomware is spreading over a network. So it means that ransomware represents the threat of data loss, but more importantly, business interruption and downtime. So that's what Infrascale aims to solve. Really, our mission is to eradicate downtime and focus on business continuity. Now, in addition to that, Infrascale is a completely end-to-end solution. We offer double-blind encryption, protection for servers, workstations, endpoints, unlimited archiving, that proactive alerting as well that we saw with the anomaly. automated data protection with retention policies and admin control. You have unlimited test recoveries, so you can ensure the policies that you set are working exactly the way you want them to, and 24/7 support, 365 days a year. And then, not to mention, we're already protecting thousands of businesses globally with our geographically dispersed data centers. So here, each red dot represents a business that we protect. And then I mentioned very early on, we've been recognized by Gartner, PC Mag, and CRN as well. Now, with that all in mind, I want to talk about the next steps for you who are joining us here. We are going to jump into the Q&A in just a moment. But what we know now is that ransomware is the #1 cybersecurity threat. So I'd love to offer everyone here on today's presentation 60 days free with Infrascale to get set up, test it out, and really have that prevention, that preventative measure in place against a ransomware attack. You don't want to have something happen tomorrow and not be prepared for it. So if you want to take advantage of this 60 days free, simply use the question tool and you can let us know there. You can also simply email us, team@infrascale.com. So we'd definitely love to hear from you. Now let's see, I'm seeing lots of comments come through here too. The reason I selected C is I can't roll back in 15 minutes, but can within 24 hours. So you wanted a fourth option. Okay, Gus. So Gus, but how long, or excuse me, how much would that 24 hours of downtime cost you? And then Gus says, I'm enjoying the webinar. It has great content. Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Let's see. Wade is saying, I thought the standard was not to pay these individuals as it only leads to furthering the problem. Well, what we've seen, Wade, is that in the first 3 months of 2016, over $200 million has been paid in ransomware. So we know that they know that they're getting away with it because you know it gets paid, and then often rather than provide the decryptor software, they'll simply up the ransom and force an additional payment. So that's why it's really, really important to get these preventative measures in place so that you are not even presented with paying the ransom as an option. You simply have disaster recovery on demand. You can just fail over your entire systems, and you don't even need to worry about the option of paying that ransom. Okay, I am going to kick it over to the Q&A now, but I have one last poll that I'd like to launch as well. So coming up right after this last poll is going to be Aaron Jordan. He's our senior sales engineer. And also here is the next steps here to request that free 60 days with us. And so Aaron, I will pass it over to you, and also I'm going to launch this last poll here. So if everyone could please answer that last poll, I'd very much appreciate it. Thanks. Over to you, Aaron. Okay, I don't hear Aaron on audio here. Let me just do a quick check to make sure that everything is set up properly for that while everyone answers this last poll here. And then, so this last poll is simply asking, would you like to hear more about Infrascale and BDR? So would you like to learn more about ransomware and BDR from Infrascale? Select one of the following. Yes, I'd like to learn more about Infrascale and failover DRaaS. Yes, educational BDR info would be helpful. Or C, no, not yet, maybe later, which is all good as well.
Is that better? Can you guys hear me now?
Hi, Erin. Yeah, I had you muted there. Apologies for that. I unmuted you while everyone was going ahead and answering that last poll there. So far, we have 86% of you guys who have voted on this last poll. I'll leave it up another minute or two while we start into the Q&A. And then and then we'll share the results of the poll.
So thanks for that, Carla. So I see a question from Wade. Wade, before I get to your first question, I did want to talk a little bit about your previous comment about paying the ransom and then having a worry about finding somebody in your back door. And I would agree with that sentiment, right? You don't want to keep paying money over and over again. And it's to that end, we have, besides our anomaly detection and the actual backup to be able to recover stuff, there's also the need for additional items, right? So we're not the end-all be-all. We're just part of a solution. So you should make sure that you have an anti-malware solution on top of having antivirus and a good firewall up, if possible, and make sure that you are adequately monitoring the inbound and outbound traffic, along with, and most importantly, this is more important than anything you can buy, is education. We do have materials that would be great for you to present for your end users, whether they decide to go with this product or not. But the idea is, if you educate them on the things to look out for, then you will usually not have to worry about this type of things. And just to kind of illustrate a point real quick, we actually, even in our own company, we had somebody passing around, there was some weird Skype message that said, like, you look funny, and then it had a link. We had to tell our guys, don't click that link. Now, it wasn't crypto-locked, thank God. It was just somebody messing with everyone's Skypes, but and it was passing off a virus, but we caught it real quick. But the idea is, it could be as simple as a Skype message or an email from somebody you thought was trusted, or, as Carla mentioned earlier, something from Amazon. So just keep that in mind. Education is probably the most valuable thing that you can walk away with. With that being said, Wade, you asked, virtualization is a tough sell to most of my clients, very small, 2 to 10 employees. Other than the scare tactic of selling the service, what points can be made to sell customers on virtualization? So my favorite thing, Wade, is insurance, right? Nobody wants to pay house insurance. Nobody wants to pay car insurance. Nobody wants to pay dental insurance. Nobody wants health insurance. But if you didn't have it, what would the bill be if you got hit with it? What if you got hit by a car and lost a leg and you had to pay for it? I know that sounds morbid, but what if you got in an accident and your car is completely totaled? Well, and it wasn't your fault. Are you going to be able to get a new car? Well, you don't have insurance, so you're out of luck. So it's not so much of a scare tactic as it is a reality. Everybody's getting hit. We've also got statistical data that says if you're down, then you're going to have this, this downtime to expect. And so the real key is to get some kind of cost-benefit analysis going. How long are you going to be down if X happens? And if you're down for X amount of hours or minutes or days, how much does that cost your business? And does that cost your business, does that in some way at least mitigate the cost for the solution? And I'm going to tell you 99% of the time, it will. So generally speaking, simply paying for this will give you that ability to roll back. Wade also follows up with, the reason I asked is the downtime numbers you're referring to are nowhere close to the monthly revenue you stated would be our losses. So this is that 0.1%, right, that the loss wouldn't be available or wouldn't equivocate to something you think would be valuable enough. But I guess really the answer is, are they, the question for the next is, are they beholden to any kind of regulatory compliance? Are they do they have to be HIPAA compliant? Do they have to have FINRA certification? Are there certifications that if they lost data, they would be fined for? Because you have to remember, it's not just what you're losing, it's also fines that you might have to pay for as a result. You mentioned you use it, Wade, again, is also mentioning that he uses the insurance analogy a lot, but he sees them saying backups are costly, so you understand that we replace daily cloud backups, which would reduce the cost of virtualization. Are they not paying for cloud backups? Right, so you would deposit an appliance on that location, and then that would do the local backups, and then you could replicate to the cloud. So there is a cloud component available as well. You can also, with your current appliance, output data to an archival drive. So you essentially get like the idea behind tape, but modernized with hard drives. So you still have your local backup and your local offsite that somebody can take home in case of a fire. But in best case scenario, you've got cloud added to it, and the cloud is actually pretty cheap comparatively. And then you can have the ability to not only spin up but also have file recovery, so you have complete business continuity. Anyone else have any questions? Anyone else? Oh, you're welcome, Wade. And Wade, I do want to say these are good use cases and good points that you bring up. It might be most conducive for you to contact Carla. She can get you in touch with a sales rep, but more importantly, a sales engineer, and we can actually sit down and hash out these for each of your clients to make sure that, you know, when you deploy this, they're comfortable, you're comfortable, they're sold on it, and you know, as you see the need for it.
Thanks, Aaron. I do still have that last poll up there, so I'm going to go ahead and just close that down. We have everyone has voted on that last poll so far, which is excellent. Thank you so much for your participation. I'll close the poll down, and I'll also share the results on this just if everyone's you know, curious to see. We have 48% said yes, I'd like to learn more about Infrascale and failover DRAS. 16% said yes, educational BDR info would be helpful, and 36% no, not yet, maybe later. So you guys are probably all good and covered. So let's go ahead now, and again, thank you for your participation there in that poll. So Aaron, I think we are good to go on the Q&A for now. So let's go ahead and announce the winner of that giveaway. So we have a Chromecast giveaway, and it looks like Wade is the winner for that. So congrats, Wade. We will reach out to you later this afternoon with more details for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Don't forget about that free 60 days. We'd love to get you set up with that. So either the question tool, if you have not used that yet, to let us know that you would like to take advantage of that. Also, you can email us at team@infrascale.com. All of you who asked for more information, we will be following up with you, so keep an eye out on your email for that. All right, so with that, again, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Aaron, for being here and answering all those questions, and we very much look forward to working with you guys in the future. Have a great day. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.